Hi everybody, my name's Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, so often we've all come together. I mean, we know it because, you know, we literally get calls and emails from all over the world now. And the hunger that is manifesting, the hunger that is just rising up in people's hearts to know love is so strong now in the midst of so much turmoil, so much, in a sense, confusion. That, you know, for us here at Bridging, you know, when we do the shows, it's just so inspiring to hear the desire, to hear, to feel the love rising up. It's just such a powerful time. We all can feel the change from separation into oneness, the change from fear into love. We can feel the new paradigms forming as the others, the older ones, the ones of separation, the ones of division, the ones of competition, lose their appeal because they're so lacking in the heart. They're so lacking in the truth of our connection to each other. I mean, in this time of wars and bombings and suicide bombings and terrorism and the emotional damage we do to each other by all the institutionalized divisions, the institutionalized separations between you and me, and we and them. And we all know in our hearts that there's one love, that there's one heart. And we all are connected to that, we all are part of that, we all, in a sense, came from that. And we all know that now is the time that we have to in a way, rise up in that experience and not settle anymore for that which is less than that. And we've been saying, you know, on the shows recently, that whatever you think you are, you're more. And that's, you know, just the power of the human heart is so strong. And the power of our connected love, our collaborative manifestation, our collaborative actions can be such, in a sense, a savior for the planet, a savior, in a sense, for the universe. And we know we want it. We know we have to have it. And yet it seems like there are barriers and difficulties. But they're coming down. You know, love is rising. You know, the heart is rising. Because it has to. I mean, the stupidity of all the negativity, the stupidity of all the fear in this literal Garden of Eden, this incredibly beautiful planet Earth, that because of that disharmony, because of that misunderstanding, we don't respect and respond to in that loving way, as we don't to ourselves and each other. But those days are coming to an end, and coming to an end sooner than we think. So really it's time for us to come together in celebration, to celebrate this new day, this new dawning, this new paradigm of joy, of coming together and doing whatever it is we do, and important things seemingly, joyously and lovingly, in that childlike wonder that we can be in that love and experience that love. And simply, for a human being, what we want to do is feel love and share it. You know, and now's the time for that. And once again, you know, this show of Bridging Heaven and Earth is dedicated to that. As you know, guests literally come in from all over the world to share their gifts and their love and their experiences and their intention to experience that love and share it. I mean, tonight's guest, Michele Denman, she's a spiritual teacher, she's a spiritual healer. At the age of 23, she just came forth and declared her intention to surrender, to completely surrender her life to God. Now, when we talk about it, I mean, what does that mean? How do you do that? Those are other questions that, over time she's had to deal with. But that in her heart was, how do I do that? How do I come into that love? And in that process, she went through incredible illnesses and debilitating diseases, and healed herself and learned how to heal others, and learned the humbleness of this human experience and the glory of this human experience. And she's come in to share her love. And as most of you know, we're in the middle of this incredible international Bridging Heaven and Earth art project, where we got this vision to contact literally people from all over the world, and now we have probably well over 100 extraordinary artists and psychics and healers and just people all over the world producing a new original piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth. And Michele has produced one, and it's magnificent, and it's here, and you'll see it, during the show. And what we also have is this incredible collage artwork from a good friend, Richard Matson and Tina, of their conception of the Bridging Heaven and Earth art piece. So we have those two pieces you're going to see, and then as a really special treat for some of you who've seen them perform live, we have some music videos of Cecilia, one of the great pure singers, lovers, on the planet today. So it's an opportunity. It's really just settle in, have the intention to experience the love, and this is what the show's about. So please join me in a short meditation, then we'll have the first Cecilia video, and then Michele will be with us in the art. So please join me in a short meditation. Okay, thank you. So the first video, as I said, Cecilia is just internally and externally just this beautiful being, and it's Amazing Grace. So Amazing Grace by Cecilia.
How sweet the sound.
Hi, welcome back. So that was Cecilia doing Amazing Grace. And the painting you're seeing in between Michele and I is the painting Michele did for the Bridging Heaven and Earth art project, Sunset on Malibu. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's really a powerful piece. And you know, it's interesting. Why don't you talk a little bit about, like, I mean, we've been getting so many stories about when people do this project, even people, you know, really gifted and really, how, you know, something really happens. Why don't you talk a little about that?
It was one of the most powerful experiences I've had on the journey. I was more nervous about the painting than the interview today. And when Shelley said, so how's it coming along? I was like, oh, okay. And I really wanted to follow through on this. And I knew that it would be something really good. But I actually had to pray and surrender through this process because I hadn't painted since I was in 3rd grade. And so, you know, the big thing was just the empty slate, the empty canvas. And it was a very nerve-wracking experience for me. I just stared at that empty canvas and I thought, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to begin. So it was just a actual practicing and applying what I teach and what I preach and to other people. And I'm always telling people, go do art, do music, things like that. So here I was having to live the truth I share. I had to actually experience it.
And at the opening, I talked a little bit about, like, at 23, what makes somebody at 23 when, you know, they should be in this age, you know, finishing school, looking for a career, looking for a soulmate, a lover, and you decided, I'm dedicating. What was that? How did that transpire for you?
Well, it happened quickly because I did go to college. I graduated from college when I was 21 years old, and I was on that very strong kind of personal growth Anthony Robbins kind of quest. And so I got a job right out of college making $55,000 a year, which is a lot when you're 21 years old. So I, for 1 year, did the corporate pharmaceutical world of Johnson & Johnson, and I experienced all this success and made a ton of money and was completely miserable and unhappy. And I was staying in the Four Seasons hotels and I was being flown here, flown there. And out of having all of those things in the external and what my life looked like, what would be the class act out of college and making that money, that actually accelerated the process to go deeper and to go, this can't just be it, because the more money I'm making, the more unhappy I am. And I was also engaged to be married, and so I had things at a really young age to learn quickly. So after 1 year of making a lot of money and living in a high rise on the 20th floor and in downtown Chicago and just looking out the window going, I'm so empty, it started a process of journaling. And just through writing, I started to...
And you did have, like, what people call a religious background. You were brought up, and so you had attended church, and somewhere along the line that wasn't fulfilling that seeming emptiness within you?
Right, and it was always self-directed because my mom didn't put me in church, my family didn't. It was like when I was 12 years old, I said, I'm going to go get baptized, and I got baptized. And it was a very much self-directed path always, but would always feel empty and that there's something missing here. There wasn't a connection. Something was wrong, and I would feel this sense of this infinite God, but it didn't connect with what was happening in the service and with memorizing Bible passages. So I would sit in these youth groups and things like that and get more and more sad and actually almost a depression around this can't be the God that I sense. And it wasn't, it wasn't showing up in the church. And so I just started talking to God through writing. And I just came up with insights as I would write and then I would walk, and I would write and I'd walk. And one day I just said, that's it, God, I'm going to give you my life. Just use my life. This can't be just to make money and have boyfriends, things you would do at 22. And this incredible process began that was undeniable. It was pretty powerful and scary. And I began to have visitations from angels in my apartment. And
how soon after you had declared this intention? Was it that night, a week later, a month later?
Within a day.
Within a day, wow.
Within a day.
Whoa.
It started with
That's fantastic.
And again, I didn't know what meditation was. I didn't know what psychic was. I didn't know what channeling was. I was sitting on my couch, and this energy, which I didn't even know was energy, came and just knocked me over, and I was flown back. And was very scared, but knew it was God. I knew it was benevolent. And then I began to...
But it was unknown to you.
It was unknown.
And so that part of it was slightly frightening, even though something in you knew. So it was like a conflict of fear and...
Exactly.
Benevolence and overwhelming love.
Overwhelming love.
So you were like almost torn. Wow, interesting. Go ahead.
I was very torn, and I would just start to feel this guidance come, not again knowing what intuition was, but it would be like, go to Blockbuster right now. I'd get this sense. I went to Blockbuster, and so I'm still talking to God going, what's happening? And I'm walking through Blockbuster, and this video, Historic Jesus, falls off the shelf and lands at my feet. And I'm like, and I knew, wow, there's something up here with this connection with Christ. I knew that it was important, and I felt I'm being called to something. Still not knowing what it was, but I knew it was to help people. And so the visions increased, and it got stronger as the days and the weeks went on, to the point of where I did sleep with the lights on, because I was actually afraid, and yet knowing it was divine. But the presences became stronger, and even began to hear and sense things. And so I just began praying, God, please show me what this is about, what's happening to me. And I went to my first metaphysical bookstore. There happened to be one in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'm in this bookstore, and again, I'm in this prayerful kind of state, and someone came up to me and said, are you Michele Denman?
Wow.
Yes.
And not a well-known 22-year-old at the time.
No, not known at all.
Right.
And this is still hard to believe. But she says, I work with a medium, and this medium channeled your name. Last week, she was given the name, Michele Denman, and somehow, through some synchronistic thing, she found me in this bookstore, and this medium told her to get a message to me somehow, that she had messages for me, and that I'm a channel, and
Wow.
that I need to call her, and she was going to guide me and help me open up my channel. And I didn't even know what channeling was. And I remember being, again, very scared, but knowing it was right, and knowing I was being led. But there was a terror/excitement happening at the same time. And I went and I called her, and I was very nervous, and I got on the phone with her, and she proceeded to tell me things that
She couldn't have known
no.
under normal conditions, what people would call normal conditions.
And she spoke in many different languages, but in English she said to me, you've been called to be a world teacher, and you're here to serve humanity, and Archangel Raphael is the angel that's been visiting you, and you are a healer, and Archangel Raphael is there actually to help you to begin to open your healing gifts. So again, I'm hearing these things, knowing it's truth. And she said a lot, and I hung up the phone going, I'm never going to call her again. I was like, this is just too weird. I'm never going to pick up the phone again. And I found myself calling the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, and proceeded to spend 5 years learning from her.
Wow.
And she taught me how to channel. And it was a lot of our time was on the phone and then sometimes in person. But she taught me how to connect and how to open up to the angelic realms and frequencies and energy, and it was a very long, arduous journey.
How do you mean? How do you mean?
Because once the process started and I began with her, then I went into what she termed the dark night of the soul. And it got very dark, very dismal. I was a very happy person, always really joyful and positive, and I went into severe illnesses, depression, knowing that, again, I was being guided by a benevolent force, and knowing it was a process I had to go through. But
But not
very
that sure all the time.
Right. And I knew that nothing
Right.
was going to stop it. I knew I couldn't get out. And she explained to me, you're being taught compassion. And I did have judgment of people in depression before I experienced depression. I thought, well, what's wrong with them? Why don't they just get out of bed and go get a job?
Yeah, and yip it up.
I had that kind of attitude
Right.
of, you can conquer anything kind of attitude, and always really positive. And so when I experienced depression and illnesses, I found that the depression didn't just go away through a thought, and illnesses didn't just magically disappear. And I had a belief that things could just be gone if you changed your thoughts. These thoughts didn't change what I was in. And I proceeded to read a lot of powerful books by Stanislav Grof about the holotropic mind and different things about different shamanic states. And these books described what was happening almost to a T. Exactly what I was going through were in these books that she, again, recommended that I read. And a lot of books on spiritual emergency.
Emergence or emergency?
Both.
Both.
Well, he explains the
Right,
difference. See,
right.
spiritual emergence, as you know, would be a gentle, loving process that would be easy to adapt to. A spiritual emergency would be more of a crisis where it's not. It's not
More traumatic to
traumatic.
go through it. Yeah.
And when I read the comparison, I saw I was in a spiritual emergency. And
Lucky you.
yes.
Yeah, right.
And it was opening me to compassion. And I began to see physical, mental, and spiritual debilitation on this planet in a completely different way by directly experiencing it. So as this process went on for 5 years, after that, people started to come, and I started to do channeled sessions. I could completely relate to where they were at because I'd been there. I know that frequency. It was a frequency. I'm like, I've been in that frequency. I know the frequency. I know how dark it can be. And what I've found in the course of my life on this planet is it continues to be that I have to learn everything I teach. For some reason, I probably set it up this way before I came here, but if I have any judgment about something on this earth, I end up going through it real quick, especially lately. You know, if I think something, I'll often be in that experience within 24 hours if I
Wow.
have a judgment about it. So
So it's a process of you coming into some neutrality and seeing like the whole picture, which makes everything more neutral that way.
very neutral and very specific, because if all of a sudden I'll experience something for a whole week, that next week every client that's on my calendar is going through exactly what I just went through that week. And so I can go, oh, I just went through it, and this is how I got through it, and this is what I did with God to get out of that, or and it continues to be like that. So I have that direct experience when I'm with them. I've just been in that energy. And so I often am aligned with what's going on planetary. And my life is usually in direct proportion to what's happening to kind of the general spiritual population. I wouldn't say the majority, but there will always be a parallel. So when I send my emails out to my clients, they'll say, I feel like you wrote that for me. You know, you're saying exactly what I'm going through. I think it's a harder way to journey. And so I have been actually shifting to more of the joy. And the art is actually helping me to not always have to suffer to do the work I do, but to be more in my own state of joy and creativity. So balancing that. But I believe I have a contract that I came onto this planet with that I don't think I can get out of. I've pleaded with God a couple of times, and whenever I've tried to get off of the healing path or tried to do something else, I'm pulled right back. I believe some people come to the earth and you're pretty much, you came here to do this, and this is what you're here to do. I find that if I don't stay aligned with the purpose, I don't feel joy. And the minute I'm back in alignment with service, everything's back together again. So service seems to be the call. And again, I made that commitment just intuitively knowing that I was giving my life up to something that, you know, was beyond me. And it doesn't exempt me from my own personal lessons and my own personal human journey, though. That's what I always explain to the clients I work with, that although I'm a medium and I'm getting these insights, I'm still going through it with you. I'm not up higher vibrating beyond where you are, or if I go into a session, I'm actually brought up to a higher sense of wisdom and knowledge for that person, but I'm brought right back down after the session, back to, you know, the mainstay kind of. So I think that's kept me out of ego. I think that ego can be a big temptation, especially when you start getting information and you're connecting with the divine. I think there's a temptation to go into the ego and to start thinking you're it. Like, oh, look at how, you know, great I am, and this is me. And I always am brought back to, this is not me. This is you would call God or the infinite. I like to think of it as infinite intelligence.
So, I mean, what do you think was Jesus' experience when he said the Father and I, or the Goddess and I are one? What was that in your, experience?
That this is the way I perceive it, is that absolutely God is the God within, and that is my intent when I'm working with people in sessions. It's not to give them answers outside themselves, although I can give them information, is to help them reconnect with that God source, that blueprint that's inside of them. I believe that we truly are one with God, and it's tricky when we start to say we are God, and yet I do believe we are. But I'm real careful with that, because I see the temptation on this planet to go into ego about that. Oh, I'm God. Well, yes, we are God, and I do believe there is this infinite source, so that we are extensions of, but that infinite is us. So I believe that's what Christ was speaking of, is that we are God. But I've just been, I work with a lot of different individuals around the world, and one of the themes seems to be in spiritual communities right now is looking at the shadow side of self, which we'd call the ego. And I believe that, especially as light workers, we have a responsibility to examine our shadow. And a lot of people don't want to go into that shadow side. It's like we're going to stay all, love and light. But I believe we have to also bring consciousness and light to the shadow. Once you expose it, it's light. It becomes light. Mm-hmm. So what I found through this journey is when I went into darker corridors, the minute I brought awareness, which I believe light is, once that awareness was put on that, it was brought up to light. But I don't think we can avoid looking at the subconscious or looking at the darker aspects of our humanness. Mm-hmm.
So that's how you would define the shadow, is the darker side of our humanness? Like, how would that manifest?
I would say the different temptations of the ego. I think that the shadow is self-importance. I'm so important, I'm better than other people, because I'm spiritual, then I'm going to look down on other people. I find that elitism happens a lot. I see it in spiritual communities. Starting to think, misuse of power, that power of, oh yeah, I'm all this. And I think it's really damaging and can be one of the biggest, I think, things that can pull someone out of the light. Is though they think they're in the light, but there's an ego trip about it. And what I've experienced in the mainstream spiritual communities this year is that has been the topic.
The topic has been to examine
the darker side,
the
shadow side, to look at really what is my motivation, what's my intention. Do I really have a pure intent about serving humanity, or am I doing it because I want to be famous and I want to be known and I want everyone to tell me how wonderful I am? Mm-hmm. I actually made a prayer when I surrendered to God. Please, God, prevent me from any public. I do not want to be public until I have worked more in my own ego. I don't want this to be about me.
Are you ready for the show then?
That's right.
Oh my God! Now, oh my God!
Well, October was my month of detox.
Oh, so I see.
I mean, I went through a lot.
And this is November, so we have a clean month.
Right. I'm not kidding. I believe part of the preparation was to be on the show, and I went through a lot in October, and I had to sit and literally examine my, and see the ego aspects.
Yeah, because we have an ego meter actually.
That's right.
So we'll see if it's. Oh my God! She's pure.
Where's she right on the scale of the heart? So as you were talking about the heart, we come back to the heart, and then there's the simplicity, and then we bring it back to the heart and the love. But I do believe that we have all these aspects that we have to integrate and bring them to the heart, and I've learned a lot about myself in the last month because I've been working with individuals for 10 years, and that's a real great way to avoid yourself. I didn't have to deal with me. I had just was of service and channeling information. But I had to make a decision to actually go to this next level, which was to do more personal self-examination. And because being psychic or being a channel doesn't mean being spiritual.
Right.
There's a difference.
Right, it's a gift.
Yes.
It's like being tall, kind of, in some ways. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, maybe what we'll do is talk about simplicity, because, ultimately, we want to keep it simple, stupid, because if it gets too, you can try too hard when it's easy sometimes.
Absolutely.
So, and maybe we'll do the second video, which is Cecilia doing tribute. So, if you saw the first one, Amazing Grace, Cecilia, tribute, she's amazing. I hope you like it.
This is a tribute to those who try, who settle the children in the night when they cry. This is a tribute to those who try, whose dreams never tire, who work so inspired, who reach for the sky. This is a tribute to those who are strong, who must strive every moment, whose days seem so long. This is a tribute to those who still pray for more strength to help them carry on. Yes, they go on and on and on, even when all hope seems gone. Yes, they go on and on and on and on, looking forward toward the sun. This is a tribute to those who feel they feel more than they've paid, and they need to be healed. This is a tribute to those who feel they need more than hope to help them all cope, to make their dreams real. Yes, they go on and on and on, even when all hope seems gone. Yes, they go on and on and on and on, looking forward toward the sun. This is a tribute to those who dared. They dare to be different, to show that they care. This is a tribute to those who dare. Their work never ends, their love never bends. We thank God they're there. Yes, they go on and on and on, even when all hope seems gone. Yes, they go on and on and on and on, looking forward toward the sun. Yes, they go on and on and on and on, looking forward toward the
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So we're back with Michele Denman, and you just saw that incredible video by Cecilia Tribute. Now, the painting you see, which is no longer Michele's painting, is this incredible collage by Richard and Tina. Richard Matson and Tina from the Walrus Art Gallery in Santa Barbara, and we're going to have a bridging art project opening with their incredible stuff. Now, let me read you what Richard and Tina said about producing this piece. Alan, me, came to the Walrus Art Gallery and told us about the Bridging Heaven and Earth art project. He then emailed us 20 images of art of some of the pieces that had already come in, already on the website, to get us motivated to build a piece about bridging heaven and earth. We all have our part in building this bridge, thus this piece is entitled "The City of Yahweh Was Born." We want to express gratitude to the 20 artists that made this collective piece possible, with hopes that no one is offended by the use of their wonderful work to build this montage. As more artwork arrives, we hope to continue this kind of bridging. Sincerely inspired by all of you, Richard and Tina. So, it's again just an opportunity for us all to collaborate and just have that experience. So, why don't you talk about a little bit about the simplicity that we're all coming to and we all hope to come to, and the keep it simple, stupid part.
I really believe the children that are on the planet right now are the leaders, and I've worked with a lot of these children, and they're brilliant. they teach me. And the experiences that I've had in energetic realms are this big compared to what they experience and see.
Naturally and instinctively, right.
And it's for them, it's second nature. They're, well, of course. Well, yeah, there's angels floating through the room. Well, like, of course,
Yeah,
they
whoa,
say.
whoa,
What do you, that's no
Yeah,
big deal.
what are
And
you
they're-
thinking?
Right, they're big ones, they're small ones, they have different colors. And I had a child that was 8 years old, and his mom just said, would you be willing to talk to him? Well, he got on the phone. He did not stop talking for 3 hours, proceeded to tell me what germs look like in the microcosm of energy. And his mother's, her jaw's dropping, and she's sitting in the hallway listening to him tell me these things. And so I said, so you're on this medication, Ritalin? He goes, oh yeah, it doesn't work. It's not doing anything for me, but I got to take it because I got to do, I got to follow the rules. But this child was so wise, knew exactly what was going on. And he said, well, he goes, he goes, you get it. He goes, we all have powers like the superheroes, the X-Men and the cartoons that we see. He goes, we all have that ability to be superhuman and superheroes. And so he proceeded to talk to me about gifts and how we all have that extra ESP and things like that, and as naturally as if he was talking about the weather. And so these children, I believe, are the next stage of consciousness.
And these are the people that are called indigo children, rainbow children, and they're just coming in more clear and not being so drawn into the illusion as people would talk.
Exactly. They don't have the veils, and they are coming in very rapidly right now. And I believe we have a responsibility to clean up our act right now, to care for these children, because they believe they are here to shift this planet. And I think that the responsibility is so important right now that we do our inner work to make this a clearer place on earth. I believe if we do the work inside, it's going to be reflected on the outside. And I have been given opportunities to actually leave the planet, where I had a conscious, meeting with, God, and I said I will stay for the children. And that was really why I chose to stay. I was actually given the option to leave in the last couple of years, because it's not easy being sensitive and empathic, and I feel so much, and sometimes it's not easy being a channel. People don't know what goes along with that. And I was starting to get a bit tired. And so I was promised rejuvenation if I stayed and support. And I said, I want to be here to be a witness to these children and what they're going to do with this planet. I wouldn't want to miss that. And so I think it's really exciting because I know that there's recently been things just even on the news talking about indigo children, and these children are starting to come forward and talk about their experiences. And it's that purity, that simplicity of the heart they just have naturally, that joy. We all had it when we were children. We're born with it. And I believe that we go through all this stuff to just come back to that, to come full circle right back to our hearts again. And I'm finding there's always themes. And the themes, when I'm sending messages out to my clients, and I have this newsletter that goes out, the theme right now is the heart. And I mean, it's always the overriding theme, but right now it's been really important that we come back to that purity and that innocence.
The simplicity.
Of just being.
Right.
And it's not about doing. And so there's
and we will do. We're in physical bodies, we'll move. So if we're having that experience, we'll do things in that beauty and that joy.
What I'm sensing, what's happening right now, with which I feel that with Bridging Heaven and Earth, what you guys are doing is you're already in the new paradigm, and you're already there, kind of opening up a portal for other people to come to this. I believe we're moving out of that crucifixion, suffering energy, which is the old paradigm, moving out of crucifixion into the joy, and people are still moving through that old consciousness to come to what is termed the new earth, the new energy, whatever you want to call it. But I truly believe a new earth is being formulated, and it would be arts. The guidance I've received is music, art, creativity, dance. That is the new form of the new consciousness, where we would just be it. And we won't necessarily just be doing hands-on healing in the old way, but we will just heal by our presence.
It's vibration anyhow, really, clearly, yeah.
It's not about what it's not where we would have to sit and actually go into a room and formally do the healing, but it would just happen in a conversation. And it came to me recently that right now I think a lot of the healing of the world is happening in conversations. And it could be where two or more are gathered, just having a conversation, and that is shifting.
We used to talk about now we're in all over the world, the show gets out, but even when we were in a few cities that, just even if no one's watching and no one knows, because sometimes at the beginning it was on at 1:30 in the morning in Chicago or Philadelphia, and you had to be like a drunk or a lunatic to be flipping around. But just the fact that that energy was going out, that, people like you and, Michael Tamora and the shock mules of Carlos Castaneda were just, putting out that energy, that it was changing the city
It does.
by the presence itself, even if no one's actually, they're interesting or something like that.
Exactly.
And then the Berlin Wall falls in Chicago, which is already weird. You know what I mean? Energy happens, and then
absolutely.
right. So
So we raise the frequency, and definitely I think it's so important that it's in the media now. And I feel we're in a critical time right now. A lot of people talk about 2012. My experience is that it's been sped up. I don't think we have till 2012.
well, even that's not too far now.
It's
in
not.
Earth years. So
I've been shown 2007 as a major turning point, that things have accelerated, what we call, have quickened. And I see a quickening in the quantum field already. And I have also received really good news that for a lot of us that have drudged through this year, for a lot of the light workers, January 2006 is going to be quite a party. There's some
wow,
really
we're
big
starting
things
at
coming.
December 4th. We're having a big
You're
party,
gonna-
so we're
you
going to
do-
bring
you
it
have to
in.
do it first.
Right, we're opening the portal for the whole year.
Pioneers, right? You're already ahead of the game.
Right.
But I do believe you already are vibrating in that new paradigm, and a lot of the light workers, when a lot of people come to me that are world healers and things, and I've been shown that they need to move into the arts, music, art.
Well, it's interesting because, I think I was talking to somebody else earlier. We have well over 100 people, and it's just really pretty, new in terms of Earth time. And it's a whole new paradigm, and there's just a level of trust. Very few, out of the 120, one or two said something about contracts or copyright. It's just, we trust you, we know you're going to try to do the right thing, whether you end up, works out, and whatever. But the intention is the purity, and it came out of a pure vision.
Yes.
And people aren't going back into that, the silliness and the fear.
Of the fear, yes, which is the old.
Right. And so it's been so expanding, and like you said, so many people are calling and saying, I did this piece, and it's like, it exploded something in me, So, but we knew that, when we started, that was going to have that effect, and we saw it as like acupuncture points on the planet, so.
Yes, I love that, because I knew, because it brought up so much fear in me, I knew that it was going to be a powerful
Important,
opening.
right,
And it was
exactly.
just surrender and do it anyway kind of thing. And for me, it's been about surrendering over and over again. We think we surrendered once, but for me, I've had to just keep surrendering and just
Yeah, it's
allowing.
like being born again every, never, identifying. Whatever you think you are, you're bigger.
Exactly.
So how do we get to where we don't think of ourselves?
See, and that's the emptying process. And what I found is with painting, that chatter stopped, and I was in that zone, what people call the zone, and I was there. And I spent 3 months in Malibu this summer, and so I just went and recreated that moment, because I was painting in Wisconsin, so I wasn't in Malibu when I was painting, but I just recreated that moment and went to the feeling. And I thought,
That's
okay,
why there was a cow there at
There
one
was-
point.
I had to scratch that part out. It wouldn't make sense.
Wait, this doesn't.
The red barn. And,
Right.
That's right. And, but it was the feeling. And so I realized that that's where our power is in our feelings. And our truth is
Right,
in our feelings.
right.
And that's a God-given right, that I believe that our feelings can be really manipulated and programmed on this planet. And there's a lot of stuff that comes through media that, you get programmed to want to go and buy these certain products and things, and it's not even your truth. So my journey is helping individuals, and I also work with groups, helping to actually deprogram them to come back to their original essence. And I have found most recently that it's really important we go back to our original core, even the original creation, whatever that core sense of self is. And I know a lot of people have had difficulty in the last 2 months, and I believe it's going to the core, getting to the root of who you really are. And there's an emptying that happens. And I believe when you empty, you start to soften. And then as you soften.
The only thing left after you're empty is the oneness.
That's right.
So it's like, it just blows the whole trip.
All of the other
All
that
the
wasn't
other,
real is gone.
it's really, you can't have both of those experiences at the same time. You can't be a oneness and be a two-ness at the same time.
Can't serve two masters.
Right.
Christ said, I believe that's
Right.
what he meant. And my feeling is, as we soften, that's where the beauty comes naturally. There's more of an alkalinity, and there's a humility.
And joy. It's simple joy to be alive. And we see as like, it's really a time like, even up till now, I mean, there have been incredible lights on the planet. I mean, and gifted people. But they were like all separate, so there were separate points of light. So now when we start collaborating together and trusting each other and not coming from the level of, well, there isn't enough fame, there isn't enough money, there is, that I got to, it's I and I got to do my thing and I'm my teacher, all the my's, into the collaborative nature and the oneness experience where there's just an abundance of everything. And then there'll be a beam of light, and that beam is going to be so strong.
Yes.
So that's what's happening now. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful you doing this, gathering with art. I think that's just the beginning. And guidance has also shown me we must come together in the physical now. We have to come together and celebrate and have community. And it's so simple. And why we're not getting that is beyond me, that we're still isolating, and then with technology, with our computers, and we isolate more and more. But I think that it's beautiful what you're doing with that bridging of heaven and earth, because as you said, the multiple dimensions come together, and then it's that infinite potentiality as we gather. And I'm starting to see that happen just in the last month. People are starting to gather now. And I'm feeling it's not a luxury to do this, it's a necessity at this point.
Yeah, really. I mean, plus it's more fun. You know what I mean? I mean, so, if we could get back to that simpleness of it, which is more fun?
Yes.
Which is more joyous? And then we say, oh, I would rather choose that, I mean, the whole momentum changes, the whole, habit patterns, like you're saying, to break those habit patterns. But it's interesting, like, both in the spiritual community and the other, even to break it up is, of course, stupid. But we'll do it just for the sake of talking and argument. But I mean, it's just time for like all those separations to just, leave.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I believe, a lot of the people that are, quote, conscious, that came in here consciously knowing what the game is here, so I'm speaking of spiritual communities because there is a consciousness around that. A lot of what I've seen of these individuals are being called into very physical jobs or things where they're just go be amongst them kind of thing, so we can bridge that. Those worlds aren't separate anymore, the spiritual and the material, that these worlds can be
how
one.
can they be?
Right.
I mean, it's just, we break up infinity and we believe it. That's the illusion.
Exactly. And that I believe it's not about rejecting materialism, but transcending it. There's not the attachments to it, but there's nothing wrong with abundance and having
How could it be
flow.
otherwise? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the whole thing with the gruel bowl and the cross. I mean, it's like, excuse me, why? Why does it have to be that way?
Yes. So I think we're in for a big ride. I think it's going to be really powerful, and because I'm in tune and like a moment-to-moment basis, I'll see a cataclysm coming, and then I see that it changes. We've shifted it. It's shifted. There's a potential earthquake next week, and it's shifted. So as our consciousness is expanding, I think we're getting past those potential doom and gloom. Everyone's saying the world's going to...
But I mean, the truth is, at this particular time in history, it seems like there's a natural disaster, like every 16 minutes.
Yes.
So, there is a lot of releasing and healing,
Yes.
Internally, just the explosions you're thinking about, individually are happening on a global and collective scale, on an earth scale.
Exactly. I think there's a gift that it's happening in these spurts, and not this massive, that we're in a very heavily populated area. I think that there has been a benevolence. I do believe we're under the grace of God.
Right.
And I
But it's all
believe
driving us into living in the moment, to
It
be
is.
flexible, to know that we don't know the next moment.
Exactly. And that's where surrender, I have found,
Right.
just in my journey this year, just more and more surrender to just being in the now and trusting and listening and to what some would call the feminine, or the intuitive feminine, the divine feminine, which I also believe is opening up through the heart at this time on the earth. And it's exciting because I believe that we're going in places that we can't even comprehend. I believe that there's this new creation.
And we don't need to comprehend it.
Right.
You know,
Everybody
you just-
wants to.
Right. I mean, that,
Right.
to take the mind and it can't deal with something that's bigger than it. So at some point we realize, this is a tool I don't really need in certain areas.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's what, all the, spiritual, traditions and techniques and meditations are somehow to have the experience of.
Yes.
That there's a place, in a sense, beyond mind, where mind, and in that, Something's different.
Yes.
Yeah, the identity's bigger
Yes.
or infinite or something.
The fancy term non-duality,
Right.
of coming out of a non-dual nature. And what it was helped me with that is I've shifted out of non-dual realities. It's just going, okay, this isn't real. You have to keep kind of deprogramming. This isn't real. This isn't real. As you become more of your infinite, your true self. Any attachment or appearance of a reality, if it's not love, it isn't real. So, I mean, ultimately, it isn't real. It may feel real when you're in it, but I've learned that there's a lot of illusion. And so, with surrender and being willing to just ask for, that's been my simple prayer, is just, God, show me what's real. And that weeded out a lot of stuff. A lot of, things will just change immediately with that kind of a prayer. And I surrender the illusions and show me what's real. Your physical life can have an immediate difference within hours, and things start to change, with an inner choice such as that. And I do believe that we're in an inner choice right now of choosing heart, and I believe it has to be done
And
consciously.
do you see that, people, I mean, you see people every day from all over the world
Yes,
or
yes.
calling or stuff, that, and like I said at the opening, that we see it so much, that hunger is really just,
Oh, it's escalated.
it's escalating
It's
tremendous.
stronger now than it's ever been. In the last, I'd say, 2 months, it has escalated to the point of where I can't keep up with the amount of people that are coming.
Wow.
I have a waiting list at this point, because there's just so many people that have come that I physically can't manage that many people in a short period of time, so I've had to extend it, which I don't like to do, because a lot of people have been in crisis.
And it's interesting because we've been having the same experiences, that we could literally, if we had our own studio and everything was set up and, the crew and, the crew could be paid and all that, I mean, instead of volunteering, we could have a show every day with the most incredible, people from the age of 5 to
Yes.
500 almost, who
Yes.
are writing books and having experiences of that love and just on fire, passionate about it. So, okay, in 10 or 15 seconds, what would you tell the whole world who's listening?
To just surrender. It's all about surrendering right now, I believe, because there is an infinite that knows, and this mind that thinks it knows, I believe that's the trap, and that's where we get caught in illusions. And if you're not happy right now, if you're not in joy or bliss or in happiness, then you're in a reality that isn't real. And so, God, show me what's real. And to do that, there does need to be a surrender. And in my experience, it's been being willing to let go of everything. Just being willing
Okay,
to
so that's it. If you want any information, Michele, anything else, 805-687-2053. We love you. Good night. God bless you.